Egypt has been dug up, mapped, photographed, and picked apart for over 200 years. Archaeologists have crawled through nearly every tomb, temple, and burial shaft the desert has to offer. You'd think by now there'd be nothing left to surprise us. And yet, every few years, something turns up that makes even seasoned researchers stop, stare, and quietly admit, we didn't expect this. Not aliens, not magic. Just history doing what it does best, hiding things in plain sight until someone finally looks close enough. Here are 10 of those moments. 10 objects that shouldn't have existed the way they did, or shouldn't have survived, or simply shouldn't have been where they were found. Number 10. The Saqqara bird. In 1898, in a tomb near Saqqara, archaeologists pulled out a small wooden object shaped unmistakably like a bird. At the time, nobody paid it much attention. It got tossed into a storage box with dozens of other bird figurines, the kind Egyptians carved by the thousands as offerings to the gods. It sat there, largely ignored, for decades. Then in the 1970s, an Egyptian doctor and aviation enthusiast named Khalil Messiha took a second look, and something about it bothered him. This bird had no legs. Its wings weren't shaped like a resting bird's. They were flat, horizontal, angled like an airfoil, with a vertical tail fin unlike anything found on real Egyptian bird carvings. He wondered, half seriously at first, if it was a glider model, so he built scaled-up replicas. And they actually glided. Nobody's claiming the ancient Egyptians had airplanes. That's a step too far for the evidence. But nobody's fully explained why a 2,200-year-old wooden bird has the proportions of a modern glider wing either. It still sits in the Cairo Museum today, filed under bird figurines, quietly defying easy explanation. Number 9. Tutankhamun's iron dagger. When Howard Carter opened Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922, the gold got all the headlines, and it's easy to see why. But tucked into the wrappings beside the boy king's mummified body was a plain iron dagger with a gold handle and a rock crystal pommel. Here's the problem. Tutankhamun died around 1323 BC. Egypt wouldn't develop the technology to smelt iron from ore for centuries after that. Iron objects from this period are almost unheard of. So where did this blade come from? For decades, it was a mystery historians simply filed away. Then in 2016, a team of Italian and Egyptian researchers ran an X-ray fluorescent scan on the metal, checking its exact chemical makeup. The iron's composition, high nickel, high cobalt, matched meteorites almost exactly, and even matched the specific ratio found in a meteorite that landed near the Red Sea coast. This dagger wasn't smelted from mined ore at all. It was hammered, cold, out of a rock that fell from space. Ancient Egyptians even had a name for meteoric iron. They called it iron of the sky. Number 8. The Disk of Sabu. Found in 1936 in a tomb near Saqqara belonging to a prince named Sabu, this object still doesn't have a fully settled explanation. It's a shallow stone disc, about 61 centimeters wide, carved from a soft, brittle rock called schist, with 3 curved lobes rising from a central hub like a strange 3-bladed dish. Egyptologists mostly agree it served as a ceremonial vessel or a symbolic offering stand, and the lobes may represent something like a lotus flower or standard religious imagery from the period. But here's what keeps people talking about it. The craftsmanship needed to carve that thin, curved, brittle stone without cracking it is genuinely difficult, even with modern tools and modern precision equipment. It sits in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. Tucked in a corner, most visitors walk straight past without any idea they just passed one of the odder, more technically baffling pieces in the entire collection. Before we keep going, if you're enjoying this one, hit that like button. It genuinely helps get these stories in front of more people who love this stuff as much as you clearly do. Number 7. Nabta Playa's stone circle. Everyone's heard of Stonehenge. Almost nobody's heard of Nabta Playa, a small, unassuming stone circle sitting in the Egyptian desert near the Sudanese border, far from the Nile and far from any tourist route. It's roughly 1,000 years older than Stonehenge, dating back to around 4800 BC. Back then, this stretch of the Sahara wasn't the barren desert it is today. It had seasonal lakes, grassland, and herds of cattle that early pastoral communities followed and depended on. Researchers from the University of Colorado, led by astrophysicist J. McKim Malville, studied the alignment of the stones and found that several of them line up with the summer solstice sunrise, and others appear to correspond to the positions of specific stars. That means the people living here were tracking the sky, marking seasons, and organizing ceremonial life around astronomy before Egypt even had pyramids, before it had a pharaoh, before it had writing as we know it. Number 6. The ivory statuette of Khufu. The Great Pyramid of Giza is the only one of the 7 ancient wonders of the world still standing today. It was built for Khufu, a pharaoh who ruled Egypt around 2560 BC and commanded the resources of the entire kingdom to build it. Strange fact, we have no confirmed large-scale statue of him anywhere, not one. For a ruler who built the single most massive stone structure in human history, that's a genuinely odd gap in the record. The only known image of the man who built the largest pyramid on Earth is a statuette smaller than your thumb, just under 8 centimeters tall, found in 1903 at a temple in Abydos by the British archaeologist Flinders Petrie. According to his own field notes, he found the headless body first, then reportedly spent several days sifting through the surrounding debris by hand, searching for the missing piece. When he finally found it, the tiny carved face turned out to belong to Khufu himself, confirmed by an inscription on the throne, the most powerful builder in ancient history, responsible for one of the largest construction projects ever undertaken, and this fingernail-sized carving is essentially all that survives of his face. Number 5. The Osirian's megalithic blocks. Behind the temple of Seti Yai at Abydos sits a strange, partially sunken structure called the Osirian, and it doesn't resemble anything else built in its era. The blocks used in its construction are massive, some estimated at over 100 tons, cut from red granite and hauled from quarries near Aswan, roughly 200 kilometers away, an enormous logistical undertaking even by Egyptian standards. For decades, some researchers pointed to the size, weight, and rough-hewn style of the blocks and argued the construction technique looked older than the temple built directly on top of it, possibly dating back to the Old Kingdom rather than the New Kingdom period it sits in. Most Egyptologists today date it to Seti I's reign around 1290 BC and believe it was deliberately built in an archaic, older-looking style specifically to honor Osiris, the god of the afterlife, giving it a sense of ancient sacredness on purpose. Still, walking through its sunken, waterlogged chambers today, even skeptics of the older dating admit it feels like it belongs to an entirely different, older world. Number 4. The underground galleries of the Step Pyramid. Everyone knows Djoser's Step Pyramid at Saqqara, the very first pyramid ever built in Egypt, constructed around 2670 BC under the guidance of the architect Imhotep. Fewer people know what's underneath it. Over 5 kilometers of tunnels, shafts, and burial chambers, some of which are still being mapped and explored today, over 100 years after excavation first began. Inside these underground galleries, archaeologists have recovered more than 40,000 stone vessels, made of materials sourced from regions hundreds of kilometers apart, from different parts of Egypt entirely. Nobody has a complete answer for why a single royal burial complex needed that staggering number of containers, or exactly how such a wide range of stone was gathered and transported to one site. The tunnels are still being excavated in phases, and nearly every excavation season in recent years has added a few more chambers to the known map. Number 3. The Dendera Light Reliefs. Deep inside the Hathor Temple at Dendera, there's a wall carving that has caused more arguments online than almost anything else in Egyptology. It depicts a large, bulb-shaped object connected by what looks like a cable to a base resembling a socket, with a snake-like line running through the center of the bulb. Fringe theorists have spent decades calling it an ancient electric light bulb, evidence of forgotten advanced technology. Mainstream Egyptologists point out, with fairly strong supporting evidence, that it matches well-documented religious imagery from the era, specifically a lotus flower giving birth to a serpent, a symbol representing creation myths that appears throughout Ptolemaic-era temple art across Egypt, not just at Dendera. The carving itself is completely real, the online debate around it is loud and ongoing, and the actual academic explanation, while less exciting than a secret ancient power grid, is still genuinely remarkable on its own. It's a 2,000-year-old visual metaphor for the birth of the world, carved by hand into solid stone. Number 2, the Palermo stone. This one isn't glamorous to look at, a broken, weathered slab of black basalt, but it might be the single most important historical record ancient Egypt ever produced. It once listed the names of Egyptian kings going all the way back to before the First Dynasty, along with yearly records of Nile floods, religious festivals, tax counts, and major political events, essentially an ancient royal chronicle carved in stone. The problem is, only a handful of fragments have ever surfaced, scattered today across museums in Palermo, Cairo, and London, discovered separately over the course of more than a century. Historians estimate the complete original stone would have measured over 2 meters long. Based on what survives, we're missing roughly 90% of it. Somewhere, possibly still buried under a modern city, possibly broken apart and reused as building material in later construction, is the rest of Egypt's earliest written history, waiting to be reunited with the pieces we already have. Number 1. The missing tomb of Imhotep. Imhotep designed the step pyramid, served as chancellor and personal physician to King Djoser, and was so deeply respected in his lifetime that centuries after his death, Egyptians began worshipping him as a god of medicine, healing, and wisdom, one of the very few commoners in Egyptian history to be deified. Every other major architect and high official of that era has a known, identified tomb. Imhotep does not. Excavators have combed the Saqqara Plateau for over a century searching for it. In the 1920s, the British archaeologist Walter Bryan Emery became convinced he was closing in on its location and spent decades of his career digging, right up until his death in 1971, without ever finding it. If his tomb is ever located with its contents still intact and undisturbed by looters, it could rank among the most significant archaeological discoveries in the entire history of Egyptology. As of today, it's still out there somewhere, one of the most important individuals in ancient history, still waiting beneath the sand to be found. 10 objects, 10 small cracks in what we thought we already knew about ancient Egypt. And the strange part is, every single one of these was found by accident, by someone who almost walked right past it without a second glance. Which raises the obvious question, what else is still buried down there, waiting for someone to look twice? If any of these surprised you, let me know which one in the comments below. And if you want more of ancient Egypt's stranger corners, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next one.